The NBA playoffs are here, and I'm getting my bets in on FanDuel. Talk to me, Chuck GPT. What do you know?
All sorts of interesting stuff, even Charles Barkley's greatest fear.
Hey, nobody needs to know that.
New customers bet $5 and get $250 in bonus bets if you win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
21 plus and present in Virginia. Must be first online real money wager. $5 deposit required. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable bonus bets that expires 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See full terms at FanDuel.com/sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Every day, thousands of Comcast engineers and technologists, like Kunle, put people at the heart of everything they create.
In the average household, there are dozens of connected devices. Here in the Comcast family, we're building an integrated in-home Wi-Fi solution for millions of families like my own. It brings people together in meaningful ways.
Kunle and his team are building a Wi-Fi experience that connects 1 billion devices every year. Learn more about how Comcast is redefining the future of connectivity at comcastcorporation.com/Wi-Fi.
Hello, Beat Check listeners. I'm Julia Silverman, and I am the Oregonian's K-12 education reporter. But not while I'm hosting Beat Check. While I'm hosting Beat Check, I just get to be nosy and ask questions about all kinds of things. Today, we're going to talk about the results of a new poll commissioned by the Oregonian that takes the temperature of local residents on a whole host of issues. This time around, we asked people about everything from how hard it is to find a primary care physician to what keeps people tethered to Portland and the metro area. If you're an Oregonian reader, you've probably seen a lot of poll stories rolling out over the past few weeks, and we thought this would be a great chance to give people a sense of an overview, if you will, of the poll's main findings. So joining me today is my boss, Oregonian Politics and Education Editor Betsy Hammond, who oversaw the poll and has edited more stories about its results than she can count on both hands and maybe all of her toes, too. So welcome to the show, Betsy. Thank you so much for taking time to talk with me.
It's an absolute pleasure.
Before we dive in today, some fine print. Should I take a deep breath and see if I can say this all without taking another breath? No, I won't. But the poll of 600 registered voters in the 3-county Portland area was conducted March 6th to March 13th and has a margin of error of plus or minus 4 percentage points, with higher margins of errors for subsets of respondents. It was commissioned by the Oregonian and Oregon Live and conducted by Portland-based DHM Research. Survey participants were reached by telephone or text, and the demographics of respondents were tailored to be representative by age, gender, race, education, income, and political party. Okay, now that groundwork's been laid, on with the show. Betsy, tell us, what were your top takeaways from our poll, which I should also say is the latest in a series of similar surveys that the newsroom has commissioned over what I think is the last few years?
Yes, I think we did our first one in 2001, and we've done these polls on the regular. This one was different and special and wonderful, and that is because they've all been wonderful, but ahead of designing this poll, newsroom leaders conveyed a newsroom-wide conversation to try to do some priority setting about our journalism more generally. And the insights that emerged from that conversation very much fed into this poll, which was that we've covered a lot of gloom and doom in Portland, frankly, as has happened nationwide. You know, the pandemic, homelessness, economic struggle, and folks generally, journalists across our newsroom, across teams said, hey, let's kind of keep a steady watch on quality of life, and let's ask about some positives. For instance, we and others have done a lot of coverage about people are moving out of Portland or out of Multnomah County. And that is a notable trend, newsworthy trend, maybe, 3% of residents, but sort of the flip side of that, like, well, 97% of us are still here. And so we really asked questions that we had never asked before. In the past, we asked like very standard questions about politics and the economy. we still ask those questions, but we did some on the flip side of what is it that keeps you here? And, there's been a lot of critique of government inefficiency and government waste, and I'm all in on covering those things, but also government does some things that people appreciate. And so we asked about people visiting local parks and using their library. And so it was just a really fresh take on the survey. The team at DHM Research is fantastic. And they also said, like, some of these questions have never been asked in polls that we're aware of, or very rarely been asked. And so when the results came in, they were full of pleasant surprises. And the upshot was that we maybe often would get 10 to 12 stories out of poll results. We have 17 stories from this poll, and many of them are really rich and surprising and fresh. And part of that, we were helped by the fact that we polled voters in the 3-county metro area, and more than 1 in every 6 poll respondents, when we said, hey, would you be willing to talk to a reporter and give us your contact information? They said yes. And so we had this data set of about 110 individuals who were willing to talk to a reporter to flesh out the poll responses to really help us understand how that fit in with their larger experience and give more nuance and texture to our stories. And so, 17 stories from one poll, and they were great and they were wide ranging. But I have to say, if I had to name a favorite, which is a dangerous thing to do, as with one's children, it was probably Jamie Hale's story about how access to outdoor recreation and natural beauty is by far the number one factor that people in the Portland metro area named as what tethers them to wanting to continue living here and finding joy in daily life. And, it ran on Sunday A1, and it showcased photographs and stories of people who really make use of the natural beauty that is so readily available, whether at a neighborhood park, at the Rose Garden, on Mount Hood, in the Gorge, and was a story that, was anchored in the fact in statistics, but really spooled out with a lot of rich texture and detail. I'm so grateful to all those poll takers who agreed to let us do follow-up interviews with them.
I loved Jamie's story too. It always reminds me of a story I reported a long time ago. It was about the University of Oregon trying to attract faculty members and relying on what somebody that I interviewed for that story called the rhododendron factor, which, broadly translated means U of O or other places could perhaps get away with paying a little less than, say, the University of Oklahoma, because living here is, there's just so much natural beauty. So my favorite story was by politics reporter Sammy Edge, who recently wrote about the impact that the Trump administration is directly having on Oregonians. And that was really a big change from the last time we polled Oregonians, because this time we were asking them about who's in charge in Washington, D.C. So, Betsy, can you expand on that for us a little bit and tell us what our survey results told us about what Portland area residents think about their lives during the second Trump administration?
Well, we didn't want to ask in our poll, we asked for approval ratings of the new Portland mayor and of our governor. We did not ask, what do people in the 3-county Portland area think of Donald Trump? We know about the party registration and the election results in our area, and it would be news to absolutely no one that Trump is not popular or well regarded in deep blue Multnomah County and its neighbors. We did decide to ask about the effect of the Trump executive orders, and just to see how many people would tell us they felt that they had been directly affected. And it was pretty notable. We polled in early March, so hundreds of executive orders ago, that 1 in 3 Portland area adults said they had been directly affected. And reporter Sammy Edge worked really hard to, again, use that database of poll respondents who've said, hey, yes, I'll be willing to tell you more about my answers to flesh that out. What we didn't expect in conducting the poll was that there was more revealed about the Trump effect that we didn't ask about. And this was also a favorite story of mine, written by you, Julia Silverman,
Look at that.
where the poll results broadly showed Portland area adults less negative on Portland in ways that pointed to, oh, yes, it's not perfect here, but at least we are in an anti-Trump stronghold, which this area, voters in this area seem to appreciate. And indeed, your follow-up interviews with poll respondents who'd said, I'm less negative on Portland. I'm more appreciative of local political, or I'm less negative about local political leaders or the local homelessness situation or the local whatever. And that was tied indeed back to Trump. That it was a result we totally didn't expect and we didn't directly ask about. And boy, oh boy, did it show up. And so, yes, after you Google and read Jamie Hale's story about the holding power of the great outdoors, you should also read Julia Silverman's story about Portland area residents being more positive or at least less negative about their hometown in this era of 2025.
And what kind of news did our poll have for Governor Tina Kotek? And you mentioned Keith Wilson for the new Portland mayor. I think those are the only two political leaders that we directly asked people about this time. But what kind of insights did the poll provide?
Again, it wasn't that folks were awash in positives about either of those leaders or about the situation in Portland and Oregon more generally, but they were definitely more forgiving, less negative, and just showing some kind of like, okay, I'm more willing to give you a chance. I'm not sure that you're letting me down, which probably is a good feeling for those politicians.
Absolutely. One of the results of the poll that I found the most surprising was in the evolving attitude about downtown Portland, which has really been the subject of a ton of coverage over the past 5 years. A lot of it pretty negative, not necessarily all from us, from all kinds of media outlets, national and local. So tell us what the poll illuminated on that topic.
Well, it was definitely a stark change. And again, it wasn't so much that people are feeling that everything's fine in downtown Portland, but the deeply negatives, that Portland is, it's my view of Portland is that it's really, really terrible, dropped precipitously. And we also saw that folks still are not visiting downtown on the regular. As anybody who works downtown can tell you, the number of people who come downtown to work every day remains really low, or even, much of the time. It's become more of a special occasion destination where people come, a couple of times a month, perhaps, to shop or to dine. But I was lucky enough to get a last minute invitation to see a show at the Keller last evening last Wednesday. And it was a warm night, dry night. And it was just a delight to be downtown. There were thousands of people coming to the show, folks hanging out at the Keller fountain, just a very jovial, crowded, lots of smiles experience in downtown. And so we're seeing that it's not going to be the same downtown, at least according to the poll, and the persistent patterns of folks not coming down on the regular. But Jonathan Bach did a really nice story. I commend that to anybody listening to the podcast to read his story.
And we'll link all of the stories that you're mentioning in the show notes. Wait, Betsy, I just have to ask, what did you see at the Keller?
Life of Pi,
Oh,
which is a
cool.
book I loved reading when it came out in 2001. And yeah, pretty dramatically rendered last night on the stage in front of thousands at the color.
Cool. All right. Well, we decided to include some unusual quality of life questions in this poll this time around, as you sort of nodded to in your intro. And I was particularly interested in the ones that we asked about the presence of security guards at grocery stores and other retail outlets, and how easy or difficult people find it to get in to see a primary care physician. I just actually had to switch primary care physicians myself. It is not easy. What are your takeaways on these bread and butter questions?
I also was fascinated by those responses. And again, I credit the newsroom wide conversation. Those were not my ideas to ask about. Those ideas came from others in the newsroom, and they really resonated with our sample of 600 poll takers. You know, folks said in huge numbers, yeah, I have noticed the difference in security guards being much more commonplace when I go shop, and less so in Clackamas County, but definitely a phenomenon. And folks told us mostly that makes me feel safer. So just a slice of life of how many of us, you know, go to Fred Meyer or, you know, Target or wherever, and it's something so many of us are experiencing. And then the healthcare questions about, do you worry about affording your healthcare, and can you find a primary care doctor or get an appointment with a specialist? And those numbers just were off the charts in terms of people say, yeah, it is a different world than say 3 years ago. And our health reporter, Christine DeLeon, did such a great job of, again, going deeper by doing the interviews with some poll respondents and really fleshing out what that is like for so many in our community to be experiencing of like, I've got a health problem. I need to see a doctor and I cannot find a new primary care doctor. I can't get an appointment with a specialist. And again, I commend her story to you and read it. And you probably know someone who has experienced the same thing.
That's right, listeners, you know me. So the Oregonian runs these polls twice a year. Our next one will be in October. So to end on kind of a fun note, Betsy, I thought maybe we could both say what is one brainstorm of an idea that we'd like to see pollsters ask respondents about next time around. I will go first. My idea is schools, which was not necessarily really reflected in our poll, and also perhaps kind of obvious for the education reporter, but I'd like to know how people are feeling about their local public schools these days, and whether that's distinct from how they feel about the school district or the state of education in Oregon. Always hungry for more information on that topic. How about you?
Oh, well, again, not exactly a shocker that the education reporter would like to ask that question, and that the education editor that I am absolutely seconds that recommendation. In terms of what we should ask in October, I think I have learned that things are changing so fast in terms of the political and economic landscape that's the bread and butter of what my team and the poll has covered, that I can't possibly anticipate what in October will be my greatest point of curiosity or my sense of what's newsworthy. But I definitely want to learn from this poll round and ask some version of question about what's bringing you joy, what's bringing you connection, what's going right in Portland or in Oregon. We have yet to decide if it'll be a statewide or metro-wide poll, because who doesn't want to talk about joy?
That's such a great note to end on. Listeners, let us know what you think we should be asking next time we do a poll. And hey, if you do get that call from a pollster, please don't hang up on them. Please consider taking the poll. It doesn't take that long, maybe 10 minutes. And those follow-up conversations really were such a joy. We got to talk to all kinds of people whose voices we might not necessarily otherwise have heard. Betsy, this has been such a fascinating conversation. Please, everyone, follow along for future coverage into the hearts and minds of Oregonians in the Oregonian and online at OregonLive.com. I will drop links to all the stories that Betsy shouted out in the show notes. And with that, we will start wrapping up. Thank you again for listening to Beat Check with the Oregonian. If you like the show, give us a 5-star rating and review wherever you listen to podcasts. It really, truly does help people find the show. And tell your friends, help spread the word. But the number one best way to support our journalism and stories like this one is with a subscription to the Oregonian and Oregon Live. Let me tell you, polls don't come cheap. So you can do that at OregonLive.com/pod support. Until next time, thanks again for listening.